Hello, my name is Patrice Miller, and welcome to Empowering Your Employees to Build You Strong. This course is designed to empower both leaders and individual contributors to create a culture of engaged employees who are comfortable speaking up and addressing their concerns. This course contains 3 modules. 1 is Create the Culture, 2, Addressing Employee Relations, and 3, Conflict Resolution. I am so excited you decided to take this course, and I look forward to sharing valuable tools and resources with you that you can take back to the workplace and start applying immediately. Let's get started. Create the culture. In this module, we will cover 4 lesson plans. Those consist of the cost of a disengaged culture, the culture of effective communication, which starts at the top. We'll also cover bullies are not just at the playground, which I'm sure most of you know. And we'll also cover the top techniques to create a culture of empowerment. In this lesson, we will be talking about the cost of a disengaged workforce. We will explore the cost of disengagement at the financial and employee performance levels. There will also be activities in this lesson for managers to reflect upon their own behaviors and beliefs towards disengagement. This will help them assess their readiness to address and prevent the challenges connected to disengagement. Recognize the signs of employee disengagement. In a couple of slides, I'm going to ask you to take a moment to consider how a disengaged employee might behave. Design a culture to combat disengagement. Once you're able to recognize the signs and become more aware of your own behaviors, you will be able to design that culture that is going to combat disengagement. Earlier, we talked about recognizing the signs of a disengaged employee. I'd like you to take a minute here to consider what are the signs that you might notice in regards to your employees' work performance or their interactions with their colleagues. While you were thinking about the signs that you might notice in regards to your employees' work performance or interactions with colleagues, did any nonverbal cues come up for you? And I asked that question because there are obvious signs and there are also subtle signs of disengagement. Remember, it is important to pay attention to both of those. Now that we've covered recognizing some of the signs of a disengaged employee, what is your reaction to those signs when they show up? Let's take a moment to just think about how you react when those signs of disengagement show up, because that is one of the most critical things to be self-aware about when it's time to address employee disengagement. Now that you've had time to consider what your reactions may be to the signs of employee disengagement, do you have a game plan in mind for helping a disengaged employee, or do you tend to ignore it and hope it will correct itself? This is one critical piece in addressing employee disengagement, and that is having a game plan in mind will make you far more successful when you're addressing employee disengagement. The reason why it is so important in having a game plan is the cost of disengagement. This can be very costly. In my research, I learned that between $450 and $500 billion can be lost in corporations each year. That's a high dollar. And that number makes up anything from low productivity, employees leaving, where companies have to pay to rehire and retrain. And it also causes errors in the production and in your service arenas. So it is critical for companies to have this on their radar and have an action plan in place so that they're not spending all this money when they don't have to. On the other hand, from disengaged employees, of course, engaged employees are productive, which equates to less financial loss for your company. However, additional research indicates that only 1/3 of U.S. employees are engaged in their workplace. Wow, this is a staggering statistic that certainly deserves your attention and commitment to this. However, the good news here is that you, as leaders, have the power to change and prevent disengagement in your company. As we discussed earlier, recognizing the signs early on, addressing employee disengagement early on and head on will help put you far ahead of the game. Now that we've covered recognizing the signs of a disengaged employee, watching out for nonverbal cues, and we did a little self-awareness around your reactions, let's explore a story of a disengaged employee to recognize the signs that you can spot in early stages. Sally had been with her company for 15 years. Sally had organizational knowledge that many of the newer employees lacked, so she was often put in charge of training new employees. Sally was always the go-to employee. She volunteered for the extra committees and took pride in her work. Recently, Sally's behavior at work has changed. She is missing meetings and not speaking up as much on the team calls. Sally was always counted on for her input in the staff meetings, but recently she seems more quiet and withdrawn. Sally's manager overheard her say, "It is what it is," when speaking to a colleague about a recent project they worked on. Sally has started to take some additional time off work at unexpected times throughout the week, and her once open office door is almost always closed now. Sally's manager meets with her for her performance review and asks, "How's everything going?" Sally indicates everything is the same old, same old. Sally doesn't directly bring up any issues, and she is still meeting her deadlines at this point. So her manager completes the review and does not dig deeper. Sally has been with the company for 15 years, so there's no reason to think she would leave anytime soon. The manager decides not to pry, and the review ends. I'd like you to take a couple of minutes and jot down your responses to the following questions on this slide. And we'll begin with, have you ever experienced a situation similar to this with anyone on your team? And it doesn't have to be exact. Even if something comes to mind that makes you go, go ahead and jot that down. It can be difficult to know when to have a conversation, but are you picking up on the signs? And when you think about this, we do understand that leaders are very busy now. Companies are doing more with less. And sometimes leaders are reluctant to open up that Pandora's box in case there is going to be a lengthy negative conversation that comes out of this. But brushing that aside, are you able to pick up on the signs? Early warning signs can vary with different employees, but are we really paying attention to distinct changes in employee behaviors? And when you jot down your response, I'm hoping it's not yes or no. It would be more beneficial for you if it's yes, but, etc., etc., or yes, and, etc., or no, but, etc., and no, and. So take a moment to jot that down. Now that you had an opportunity to reflect and write down your responses on the previous slide, let's take another look at the scenario. Again, Sally started out as a go-getter at work, participated in company committees, was engaged in wanting to contribute to her company and outside of the company. Suddenly, her behavior changed. She's not participating in the meetings. She's making comments that are outside of her former character, such as, "It is what it is." These are obvious signs of change. And this would have been a good time for the leader to re-engage with Sally and dig a little bit deeper during her performance review. Because it could have been something as simple as, well, let's just take a step back. Sally was with the company for 15 years, hard worker, knowledgeable about the organization, skilled, training newer employees. It could be that the leader was more welcoming and open with the newer employees versus with Sally because she had been there for a while. You know the old saying, the honeymoon is over. Sally's work may have been going unrecognized, or I should say her hard work, and she may have begun to feel like she was being taken for granted. She wasn't receiving any recognition. And that's something that the leader can actually simply change if they're aware of that. That is just one example of digging in just a little bit deeper to get to the bottom of what may be going on. Keep in mind, leaders, that you are empowered and have the ability to build a culture of engaged employees. And with the tools that we discussed today, you are even more equipped through your own empowerment to empower your employees to help you set the culture of highly engaged employees, which will build you strong. Remember, the cost of a disengaged workforce, which could cost anywhere from $450 to $500 billion per year for corporations, it actually extends much further than that because of all of the negative consequences, such as employee relations issues, conflicts amongst coworkers, etc. They are all interconnected and they all impact your workplace. Also remember the culture, the productivity levels, and just really the general overall motivation of your employees will affect your bottom line and strategic organizational outcomes. And wrapping up lesson 1, empowered managers build empowered employees. And so when leaders pay close attention to the changes in employee behaviors and recognize the potential signs of employee disengagement early on, not only is it easier to develop an effective plan of action, it also can re-engage your employee and empower them to be a full contributor to the team. In lesson 2, we will discuss management teams and a healthy communication style that would encourage teams to follow suit. Look forward to seeing you in lesson 2.